I want a full report on the Mendez investigation, typed up and on my desk before you leave.
You got it.
We have absolutely no jurisdiction out there. I want you to check in with local authorities the second you land. You're there for surveillance only. If you spot Calderone, the Bahamians extradite him. That's it. No vigilante stuff. The only place Calderone is going to be nailed to a wall is in a Miami courthouse. Heard something from Milch over at Division last week, that this Calderone was responsible for your brother's death up in New York.
You heard right.
Freeze! Miami Vice!
Fast cars, flashy clothes, big money, heavy players, and the hot Miami scene.
These were the main ingredients that made Miami Vice one of the most innovative shows of the 1980s. Journey with Tim and Mark as we take a peek into the drama series with an MTV feel on the Vice of Miami podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Vice of Miami podcast for show number 6. We are glad you are joining us. This is Tim.
And this is Mark.
And we hope you enjoyed our last episode covering Miami Vice, Calderone's Return, Part 1. Well, Mark, let's get on with the show.
Absolutely we will, Tim. This is covering Season 1, Episode 5, Calderone's Return, Part 2. It's written by Joel Cernow and Alphonse Ruggiero Jr., directed by Paul Michael Glasser, who, as some of you may know, is Starsky of Starsky and Hutch fame, and the original air date, October 26th, 1984.
And now we're at the part where it's the etc. section of our show, and we're going to start with the plot summary. While on the trail of Calderone and Bimini, Tubbs falls in love with a woman who forces him to consider his loyalties. And Calderone finally meets his demise, which was the original name for the title of the show, Calderone's Demise.
And that music can only mean one thing. It's time to highlight the guest stars and list the co-stars for this episode. Well, the only guest star we have listed is Miguel Pinheiro, reprising his role as Esteban Calderone. Tim, you want to take it away with the co-stars?
Yep, I can do that. We're going to get right into the co-star list. First up, we have Fanny Napoli as Angelina Madeira, who is the daughter of Calderone.
Tito Goya returns as Carlos Mendez.
And Sam McMurray as Jimmy Jimbo Walters, the bartender at Conch Bay Lodge in the Bahamas.
Next up, we have Jose Santana as Guillermo Pino, who's the messenger boy for Calderone.
Benjamin R. Rickson as Police Chief Aubrey in the Bahamas.
Okay, now that takes us into highlighting the music making an appearance in this episode. First up, we have Voices by Russ Ballard. That's when Crockett and Tubbs are boating to the Bahamas. Can't Turn Back by Red Rider. That's when Crockett and Tubbs are boarding the Bahamas, but this is in the VHS release. What's Love Got to Do with It by Tina Turner. That's the end sequence. Many Rivers to Cross by Joe Cocker. That's the end sequence in the VHS release.
And some Jan Hammer music that was highlighted in this episode, such as Angelina Flashback, when Tubbs meets Angelina on the beach, and also Tubbs in Angelina's home. Boat Party, when they arrival at St. Andrews Island. Marina, an aerial shot of Angelina's home. Voodoo Dance at the beach party.
Okay, now we're going to cover some goose facts and locations. First up, we have Crockett. He wears a red flowery shirt in the Bahamas, while Angelina also wears a red dress at the beach party. This makes the episode one of the very few times the color appears in the show. Red was one of the colors Michael Mann banned from use on the production of the series. In fact, several of the guests at the beach party wear costumes that violate Mann's no earth tones rule. It's possible the lapse in this instance was to instill a different feel to the Caribbean set story.
Now we have a goof. In the car Crockett is driving in the Bahamas, you can see a drive left sticker on the dashboard. If you notice, he and the truck carrying the Jungaroo people are driving on the right-hand side of the road.
Crockett's Stinger speedboat makes a notable appearance twice in this episode. First on the way to St. Andrews, and then on the way back.
Another fun fact is this is one of 3 episodes that does not feature the Miami Vice theme over the closing credits. The others being Phil the Shill and the series finale, Free Fall. The episode also does not end on a freeze frame.
And finally, we end up with another goof. The mask that Tubbs receives at the hotel for Junkanoo is not the mask he wears to the party. Okay, it's time for the trivia section of our show. In show number 5, we asked you what type of donut was Ludovici eating in the Freedom Tower in Carolyn's house? The answer is a sprinkled donut. We'll have a picture of it on our Facebook page.
And this week's trivia question is, in the final scene before the big gunfight, what grade did Calderone tell Sonny that he never made it past, yet still had always been able to outsmart the feds? You can post your answers on this episode's Facebook post, or you can email us at viceofmiamishow@gmail.com. We will air some of the answers. This is for fun, no prizes.
Okay, let's briefly go over the ratings. Ratinggraph.com gives this an 8.4. IMDb gives us an 8.4. And me, well, I like this episode. I give it a thumbs up. It's another short and to-the-point episode. I think if they made this along with part 1, a full episode, things would have gotten blurred in the translation. As far as each plot point, it was significant itself, but rounded out certain characters overall for the duration of the series. Tim, what do you think?
You know, I agree with you, Mark, and I also give this a big thumbs up as well. The storyline showed how the friendship between Crockett and Tubbs continues to be forged in a bond of trust, simply because they were on their own in the Bahamas without the aid of the OCB team or the local law enforcement authorities.
Okay, why don't we get into the plot and subplots for the show? Tim, why don't you take it away?
Crockett and Tubbs are seen grilling Mendez. He knows enough about Calderone, but he's kind of holding stuff back from him. You know, and I like that part where it starts with them pouring him a glass of water and then they knock it out of his hand.
Smack it out of his hand. Yep,
Yeah,
I like
smack
that.
it out of his hand. That was pretty cool. Just, hey, let's wake up here, buddy. What they were looking from him is they needed some type of a hook to go to the Bahamas, because that's where they know that he went to, insert themselves in there to draw Calderone out. Then it was, you know, they started really threatening him, and they said, you know, Tubbs said, then we're going to set you loose in a federal pen as a snitch jacket. Basically, Mendez gives him the hook that they needed to get Calderone. And what was that hook, Mark?
Yeah, he says that Calderone, actually Armstrong, is due the second half of the payment for completing this list. And when it's confirmed that everyone on the hit list, including Sonny, are dead. So that's basically a giant hook where, okay, they think I'm dead as far as Crockett. Well, I'll go pretend I'm him. We'll go collect the payment, since Calderone doesn't know what Armstrong looks like.
Yep, exactly. That was very significant, very good hook. And again, we see that Mendez was really holding out on him, you know, the whole time, because he didn't want to get capped.
You can forget any deals, Mendez. You may not fry, but we are personally going to see to it that you get a year and a day, set you loose in a federal pen with a snitch jacket.
I'll take odds you don't make it past your first group therapy session.
Okay, so moving along, Crockett and Tubbs were told surveillance only about what we're assuming is their temporary or stand-in lieutenant, since Lou is dead. They're all ready to go to the Bahamas. Basically, right away, this stand-in lieutenant cuts their legs out from underneath them. Surveillance only. Don't do anything else. Let the local jurisdiction handle him if you find him. But I knew right away that this would never happen, because Tubbs, he was still hellbent in avenging his brother's death.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. None whatsoever. And as you could tell, as Crockett and Tubbs were walking out as this temp lieutenant or whoever he was, definitely somebody in charge, they're being dismissive without being dismissive.
Oh, absolutely.
they're like, yeah. It's just like the Peanuts where it's like, boom, 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 boom. That's
Right, exactly.
That's what it was like. That's what it was like to them. And then
or the kids to their parents. Yeah,
Right.
whatever. Okay, sure, right.
Exactly,
Okay.
and that's what they were doing. And then it cuts to the opening credits. And an interesting note here is that the opening theme show was changed to what it would be through the remainder of the series, which included both harmonic and melodic tones. If everybody remembers from the first several episodes, it was just really the rhythm section, the drum beats, and now they added in the really true iconic part of the theme.
Right, absolutely iconic. So on the way to Bahamas, we see what are, I guess you could say, are essentially flashbacks to Tubbs's brother's murder at the direction of Calderone, and as well as the shootout with Armstrong at Caroline's house. As they're piloting the boat, they kind of focus in on Crockett and then Tubbs, and then these images are playing through their minds. This is all playing out when the song Voices was being played. Maybe saying, I'm thinking that both Crockett and Tubb had those voices in their heads about the need to get Calderone at any cost. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, and there was a significant one in there, the flashback, and was where they show Crockett and Tubbs chasing Calderone down as he gets away in that Chalk's airliner
Right.
at the end of that Brothers Keeper episode, part 2. And it comes to play a little bit later, and we'll get to discussing that when there was an exchange between Sonny and Rico when they made it to the Bahamas.
But anyway, they get to the Bahamas there, and then they meet up with the bartender before they even check in. I was under the impression that the bartender may have been, he may have played more of a pivotal role once Crockett said he was registered under the name Miller, which was Armstrong's alias. The bartender gave him a kind of a look, but I just thought that this bartender was going to be more pivotal in the episode than what I thought could have been related to Switek and Zito, a bumbling, stoned fool. What do you think about that, Tim?
Yeah, and exactly. I thought as the episode developed that he was going to be really the middleman that was going to set up the meet between Miller and Calderone for that payout of the money. But it turns out he didn't bite on that. He just ended up being more of a stone concierge to Crockett and Tubbs and tell him, hey, Jungaroo Festival is going to be here. These are all the things, the happenings. If you want some conjure, you want any of this, I can make that happen for you. I ended up here on, I don't know if he said it was spring break. Yeah, he said spring break, and that was X number of years ago, and that was it.
He missed his flight home. That's what it was.
He missed his flight home and never looked back. So That's what he ended up being, just more of their wants and needs type of guy. And again, just a stone concierge.
And listen, anything you need, man. I mean, anything. See the kid. I can get you into some Jamaican ganja, man. Stuff will tie-dye your frontal lobe in Technicolor.
Maybe later.
Smart. I came down on spring break, got in some Caribbean grass, missed my plane back to the mainland.
Spring break? How long ago was that?
7 years, last April.
And then fast forwarding here a little bit, they're in the police chief's office of the Bahamas. Obviously, they were supposed to just surveil him and hand him over to local jurisdiction. So I guess they're going to meet him, just placate them, I guess. Hey, if we find him, we'll drop him off at you. Heck, we know that's going to happen. But the chief says he hasn't seen Calderone, which I call BS. An island this small, Calderone's money plays a big time to have the cops keep an eye out on behalf of him. Money talks and BS walks, as they always say.
Yep. And when they first met one of the things when they were with the bartender, they showed him a picture of Calderone, and there's some woman there, and he identifies her as being Angelina, who's a teacher as well as an artist, and she's could be found on a beach, just painting scenes and things like that. It was at that one point, Crockett said, hey, I'm going to go meet on my own. We don't need to both go there for this meet and greet to go pick up the money and things like that. Tubbs said, all right, I'll go and meet with this Angelina. So there is a minor subplot here, but in reality, Crockett doing the Miller thing and Tubbs doing the Ricardo with interacting with Angelina is a plot of its own versus a subplot because they each split up to do their mission. All right, we got to find out who she is, what she knows, because she's in a picture with Calderone. We need to know who this person is. That's what happens from there.
We're fast forwarding here to the beach. Tubbs meets Angelina. He does his smooth thing, but we'll get that into the subplot section. So moving past that a little bit, Crockett comes up. They see Angelina going to the boat, the Covatus, and then they see Calderone on the boat. Indeed, he's there. And then Crockett says, buy the book. Those words come out again. This is going way back to the first episode. Buy the book. Tubbs already has his plan in mind, and he says essentially, if things don't go by the book as needed, he's going to take action, which is revenge. You could just hear that in his voice. You could see it in his eyes. It's going to be revenge. He does not want Calderone to get away again.
And that's where, as we were saying earlier, that with those flashbacks to the Chalk's airliner taking off of Calderone, that's where it ties in here. That's just ingrained in Rico's head that this guy killed my brother. He is not getting away no matter what at all costs.
Alberry says he hasn't seen hide nor hair of Calderone in some time.
Yeah, he'll be here. Not now, tomorrow, the next day.
Guy could be anywhere, Tubbs. South America, Europe.
Oh, yeah? Well, we just got lucky.
Calderone, hot damn. Hey, pal, you're not in the process of forgetting you're a cop, are you? We go by the book.
Just like we did before. Ended up standing on the surf, watching the man fly away with a big smile on his face and 10 million clear in a Swiss bank account.
Listen, if you can't put a lid on that vigilante impulse of yours, then just toss a badge right now. Get him on your own. But otherwise, we're here to surveil, to catch him, and deport him back to Miami. Pure and simple.
Yeah, I'll follow the agenda all right, Crockett. But if it starts to slip back into an instant replay of what happened before, I'm gonna get him. Nobody's gonna stand in my way.
You know, at breakfast the next day, Tubbs brings Crockett a paper showing proof that he was killed as number 8 on the hit list. And it's just a way that he can bring proof while he's acting as Armstrong. It's just putting the message out there. Sonny Crockett is dead. So now he's just really can immerse himself in the role of Miller / Armstrong / the Argentinian.
If I could interject really quick here, he plops down the paper. Now, do we think that this was thought up beforehand? Okay, we'll put in Crockett's name to throw Calderone off, saying, yeah, Crockett's dead, because he doesn't know what Crockett looks like. Do we think that this was intentional, or was this a mistake in the paper that, okay, we see this mistake, we're going to run with it then? What do you think?
No, I think that this was something that was done by design as part of their whole ruse for going there.
Okay.
Again, because Calderone doesn't know who the Argentinian is or never seen him, Sonny can go and make that meet and get that second half of payout. Now, I think he was hoping to see Calderone, but he didn't. All it did is means that the Argentinian completed the hit list.
Tasks.
Yep, he completed his tasks, and it just confirms what Mendez told him when they were in Miami and they were grilling him. So Miller gets the call, we're to meet for the payoff. So Sonny said, you know what, I can handle it by my own. It's only a meet and greet type of thing. And Tubbs says, all right, I'll go work the Angelina angle.
Right. So he works the angle out, right? Does his smooth stuff. This is kind of going into a subplot a little bit, but it plays into a regular plot. She dropped the watch basically when she was getting onto the boat in the beginning. Tubbs grabbed it and he wants to give it back to her. So she's with her school kids. I'm guessing they're school kids. And he asks her if she wants to do lunch, but she says she has a previous engagement and agrees to do dinner instead. And this leads into Crockett playing Miller / Armstrong. Tim, you want to take that one? And
what he does when he's meeting with the errand boy, he ups the price from $30,000 to $60,000 on that second half of the payout. You know, the errand boy, he says, Calderone doesn't work that way. And he said, you know what? He either agrees to the up price because that he wanted to treat, Crockett as the same he would if he did a political hit.
Right, a political
somebody
hit.
He said, you either do it or he's going to end up number 9 on the list. And Sonny also when he wanted that payout, he wanted to meet and he wanted Calderone to pay it out himself.
60,000 American. Nice doing business with you.
We're not done doing business. Your people omitted telling me about Crockett. My price for that kind of job is the same for politicos. You owe me an extra 30,000.
Senor Calderone never renegotiates.
This is not a renegotiation. It's not even a negotiation. You See, my prices are not negotiable. Senor Calderone either pays my fee or he becomes number 9 on my list.
Then it just shifts into a little bit of a different scene where the errand boy tells Calderone, he whispers in his ear while Calderone is having lunch with Angelina on the yacht. He's obviously very not happy. This part of the scene ends where Tubbs tells Crockett that something just does not compute about Angelina. He just couldn't put his finger on it yet.
Right. Everything seemed confusing. Everything's playing along, but it didn't connect yet. That's kind of how I took it. So after that scene where Calderone is told Miller / Armstrong, playing by Crockett, wants more money, you could tell Calderone was formulating something, and he knew something was up as well. So I'm sure he leaned heavily on his local thugs, which plays into the next scene here. As they're driving along, Crockett and Tubbs are confronted by masked gunmen who start firing automatic weapons. This is when they're driving on the wrong side of the road, allegedly. So they're driving through the town, going left and right through the different streets there, and then they decide to park the car in the water. What we believe to make it appear that to the gunmen that Crockett and Tubbs are indeed dead. After they park the car, up rolls the police chief. And Tim, you want to take it from there?
Right, and what he does is he tells them that Calderone has left the island, and we see here that Crockett and Tubbs are onto it, that they believe the chief of police is on Calderone's payroll, or he's at least some type of a confidant, and they just start operating on the assumption that everybody knows who they are.
So we're just gonna leave the island just like that?
This stinks.
What are you talking about?
Calderone knows who we are.
How do you know that? Aubrey?
He's the only other one that knows who we are on this island.
You sure?
Enough so we operate under that assumption.
A search team, according to Aubrey, is sent out looking for Calderone. Crockett says, you know what, we're going to be returning to Miami. And then one of the things, as they're having Crockett and Tubbs are having their own dialogue, Crockett says in response to Aubrey being on that payroll, he says, you know what, we are so under, we may as well be on another planet, meaning
Right.
that they're really out there on their own. They're not getting help from the locals, don't have the access to the OCB to help them. They're just out there. This is deep cover as they can be.
Is it kind of like Mission Impossible, where the agency will disavow your existence? Something
disavow
like that.
any knowledge of your actions. Yep,
Right,
absolutely.
exactly. So going forward, Tubbs goes to see Angelina to tell her that he's actually going to leave the island. They do their stuff, the romantic interludes. And afterwards, she kind of asks him who he really is. Again, he's playing his smooth action there. He doesn't really give up that he's a cop going to look for Calderone. That's just not going to happen. Tubbs sees a picture of Angelina with Calderone, and he uses this as a diversion, and he learns that he is indeed her father. I mean, they already saw her go into his boat. What's the connection? So here they learn that he's her dad. It didn't compete before, it now does. So at the end of this scene, Angela invites Tubbs to the Jungaroo masquerade party to meet Calderone himself.
Right, exactly. Originally, he was on it thinking that Calderone was her boyfriend or sugar daddy or whatever. Once he confirmed that again, that little nagging thing in his head that says that he's, something didn't compute about her, but now he's able to connect the dots. The scene shifts to Tubbs telling Crockett who Angelina is and that he actually cares for her. The game plan is that they are going to, quote unquote, leave the island, but then they're just going to double back at night for the party. It moves along forward and we now see the Jungaroo Festival in full swing with Crockett and Tubbs in attendance in masks. They spot Angelina and Tubbs goes to see her, and then Crockett maintains, that watch fly. He's just on guard.
Right, he's checking everybody out, even though they're all in mask. But this is a perfect time for something to happen, right?
Right, yeah, they're being very hyper vigilant, but we know that the masks fool no one, and at some point Tubbs ends up in an altercation with a masked gunman, and by the end of this scene, Tubbs realizes that Crockett has been captured by Calderone's men as he sees him getting led away on a boat.
Right, Crockett is brought to pretty much Calderone's pad, and it's where Calderone rubs it in that even though he did not finish formal schooling, we're not going to give the grade because it's a trivia question. Even though Calderone didn't finish formal schooling, he was still way more savvy to outsmart the feds and local authorities. He runs down the gamut of all the agencies that he outsmarts. In this scene, Calderone repeats the phrase, but I think there's a continuity of dialogue here. He repeats the phrase when he has Crockett tied up, $350 a week cops, as in when he was in the gunpoint at the dock in Brothers Keeper. But in that, he said, $400 a week cop.
Looking forward to seeing Miami again. Nice scenery down there.
Miami's looking forward to seeing you.
It goes, huh? The local authorities, $350 a week cops, for a few lousy dollars, get them to clean my toilet bowls. You don't get it, huh? DEA, FBI, county, city, technologies, your computers. They can't catch one little man who didn't make it past the 4th grade.
The scene switched to where Calderone finds out that Tubbs slipped past the henchman. Now that poses a real threat for him because now you have somebody who's been stalking Calderone. So he gets pissed at one of his guys and he knocks him to the ground. And then we see that there's a hidden Angelina that hears the banter between Calderone and Crockett, which confirms what Tubbs told her about her father was actually correct, and we'll go about that in the subplot.
Right.
And then both him and Angelina reveal themselves, and Tubbs has got his signature shotgun in hand, and that's where the big gunfight ensues. And what happens from there, Mark?
Right. They're going back and forth. And at the end, when Crockett finally shoots Calderone, you can see Tubbs kind of has a pained expression on his face, kind of liken it to, well, I wanted to do that. It seems goofy, but that's what I take it as. Did Tubbs want to shoot him, or did Tubbs want to see him alive and then tried and jailed? I don't think Tubbs wanted to see him tried, jailed. I think Tubbs wanted him gone. But did he want him alive and tried and jailed so he could save his relationship with Angelina? Who knows? But you could definitely see that look once Crockett capped Calderone. At the very end here, when she said, what brought you here was more than your job, was she referring to him wanting revenge for his brother being killed, or, rather than simply possibly arresting him? You definitely could tell Angelina was definitely betrayed by Tubbs in the very short time that she's known him, and by her father for her entire life. So she was just betrayed by pretty much a major player in her life, her dad, and then this love interest for the next few days or whatever. And then the episode here ends with Crockett and Tubbs returning to Miami, and then Tubbs flashing back to the events of the night before. Again, a pretty good main plot, Tim. Do you want to go into the subplot here?
Yep. Really the subplot, which was part of the main plot where Crockett and Tubbs each had their own mission. Crockett was going to work being Miller/Armstrong and get that, try to get through Calderone via the payout. And then Tubbs was going to be I'm just going to go see who this Angelina is and what she's all about. But he portrays himself as being Ricardo, who's a smooth operator that says he's an art collector in Soho. And it just seems like he wanted to hook up with Angelina. He became very smitten, very intrigued by her.
Oh, yes,
from
he
the
did.
moment he saw her on the beach.
Yep. I think probably when he saw her picture too, back in Miami, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't get that sense of it, but there's a reason why he wanted to be the one to go and meet with her. But it's with obvious reasons that Sonny had to play Armstrong, and Tubbs was going to do what he had to do to find out who this Angelina is, because she had some connection to Calderone. They just didn't know what. So Tubbs is actually glad that Crockett had that meeting to collect the money. So then, it gave him that opportunity to do what he had to do with Angelina. And again, they had that brief interlude, romantic interest at her crib. Then when they're at the Jungaroo festival, after that whole thing with the, he dodged that masked gunman.
Right.
He really spills the beans about her dad, and, she's pissed that she's being used. And then he gets real vehement, and he said, he killed a New York cop. That cop was my brother. He's screaming at the top of his lungs like that. And I think, as you've always said that in a previous episode, that we see Felt Michael Thomas, where he's screaming like that. It seemed like he's almost forced acting.
It was all just a game. You were just using me this whole time. What kind of person are you?
You're gonna take me to your father.
You can go to hell.
Your father kills people. He's got my partner.
My father is not a killer. I don't know what you're talking about.
For God's sake, why don't you open up your mind and your eyes?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Mendez was kind enough to tell us about 7 murders that your father had commissioned in Miami last month.
My father would never do that.
Your father had a cop shot to death in New York City.
Leave me alone.
And that cop was my brother.
You know, what I think the true subplot here is that Tubbs falls for Angelina from the first time he had contact with her, or maybe he was definitely intrigued when he saw that picture of her with Calderone. So that's really the true subplot. The other thing, he did have to put himself in character or cover because he had to find out who Angelina really was. We have come to the part of the show where we hope to inspire or enlighten. We have officially named this Snerd's Chalkboard of Wisdom. In both the world of Miami Vice and our current world at large, we encounter many challenges we work to overcome. In the interest of creating a family and friendly atmosphere through the show and on our social media platforms, Mark and I would like to offer some parting thoughts, a simple quote, phrase, or words of encouragement or funny quip to you, our listeners, because without you, our friends, we'd just be talking ourselves. And we say friends because that's what we consider all of you who follow our show and our social media platform. This show's quote is from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., where he said, "Our lives begin to end the day we remain silent about things that matter."
And with that, we'd like to bring this episode of Vice of Miami podcast to a close. Tim and I appreciate each and every one of you listening. We hope you enjoy what we have to offer in our shows. Please spread the word about us and comment and rate us on your podcast platforms. We will see you next time for Vice of Miami show number 7, where we discuss episode number 6, One-Eyed Jack. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Vice of Miami Podcast, or email us at viceofmiamishow@gmail.com.
Please rate us and comment on the episodes and spread the word about the show. On YouTube, press the like button and hit the subscribe bell.